Created by DJ MacHale and Ned Kandel, Are You Afraid of the Dark first aired on Nickelodeon as a children's horror anthology series in 1992. While it started out as a Halloween special, the show was a huge hit among young audiences, and it eventually went on for about 10 seasons with a total of 104 episodes. The plot revolved around a teenage group called the Midnight Society, who would gather in the woods at night and narrate horror stories to one another. While some of these stories were typical ghost rumors or mythological horror tales, we've handpicked their best episodes, and today we'll be telling you all about the creepiest tales from Are You Afraid of the Dark? Before we get into our list, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means an awful lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Tale of the Dead Man's Float. Released as the 5th season's premiere episode, The Tale of the Dead Man's Float was written by Will Dixon and directed by DJ MacHale. After setting the premise where the Midnight Society's members, including Stig, Gary, Sam, Kiki, Betty, Anne, and Tucker, get comfortable, Stig declares that he must do a good job of impressing them with his story and dives right in. Interestingly, this was Stig's first story, and it's set in 1954, where a young boy named Joe goes swimming and ends up facing an unseen monster at the bottom of the pool. While Joe's older sister, Cindy, flirts with the lifeguard Charlie, they barely notice him getting in trouble and are a little too late in getting some help. While Charlie jumps in to rescue Joe, the creature succeeds in pulling the boy underwater, and the story then jumps to the year 1994, where a boy named Zeke stirs up trouble in science class. The teacher then calls for custodian Charlie to come and clean up the mess, while Zeke flirts with 2 girls on the swim team named Greta and Clarice. In fact, Zeke even meets Clarice and guides her to the boys' changing room, where he reveals that the school had some unexplored hidden rooms behind a false wall. They explore the place and end up at the same pool where Joe had drowned, and their discovery soon leads to the pool's reopening. Unfortunately, it seems the monster is still lurking around, and Zeke even notes that the pool has a horrible acidic smell when Charlie finally tells him all about the monster. He further reveals that 3 more people had drowned after Joe, and while officials didn't believe him at first, they eventually took measures to shut it down for the past few decades. Soon enough, it's revealed that the pool was built on an old graveyard and that the officials had mistakenly left one dead body behind while exhuming the rest. This dead spirit seems to be haunting the pool ever since, and unfortunately, Zeke comes up with a plan to douse the creature in methyl orange in the hopes that it will react with his acidic nature and turn red. While Clarice and Charlie linger in the background, Zeke's plan turns out to be a success as the methyl orange takes the form of a skeletal zombie corpse and reveals the lingering spirit that had claimed Joe's life. In a horrifying finale, the entity starts traveling across the room through water bodies such as pipes and drains, and even targets Clarice and Zeke when Charlie steps in to save the day. Finally, Clarice pours manganite all over the corpse and watches as it buzzes, sizzles, and eventually evaporates away in a successful science experiment. The Tale of the Night Shift. Aired as the final episode of Season 5, The Tale of the Night Shift was written by Chloe Brown and directed by DJ MacHale. It kicked off with Sam revealing that she had saved this particular story for the longest time and that it was all about illusion and deception. As she starts narrating, we learn that the story takes place during the night shift at the United Hospital, wherein Administrator Jack Palmer lectures the janitor Felix about a water pump. He even refers to Felix as Zebo and continues to tell him off, and Felix soon rushes to fix things when he passes by a girl named Amanda and Nurse Lorette. While these 2 women visit Nurse Hanton and are assigned their tasks for the following shift, they learn about a new volunteer named Margot. In the meantime, Felix runs into a mysterious girl in the basement and follows her as she leads him towards a green-skinned vampire. After getting his first victim, the vampire sends the mystery girl to lure Nurse Lorette, and we soon learn that pretty much everyone at the hospital has been infected. Nurse Hanton seems to have vampire bite marks on her neck, while Felix also undergoes a vampiric transformation and tries to attack Amanda. However, Colin rushes to Amanda's rescue and throws Felix off, but the newly transformed vampire convinces them to visit the vampire's coffin in the basement to find a way to defeat it. He also reveals that he had accidentally signed an order for a water pump and that the coffin was delivered to the hospital under false pretenses after being mistaken for the pump. While they decide to burn the coffin in the hopes that it'll get rid of the vampire, the new volunteer, Margot, approaches them and reveals her true origins as a vampire before attacking Felix. In the meantime, Amanda and Colin rush out to find the empty coffin and put it into the incinerator in the hopes that it'll destroy the vampire as well. Amidst a lot of chaos, Felix escapes the vampire and rushes to help Colin throw the coffin into the incinerator while Amanda distracts the vampire within an inch of her life. Thankfully, their plan works works out well, and the infected staff, including Felix, return to their usual selves, while Colin and Amanda laugh about this incident being their first date. The Tale of Laughing in the Dark. Written by Chloe Brown and directed by Ron Oliver, The Tale of Laughing in the Dark was the second episode in the entire series. It started with the Midnight Society's members exploring the Playland amusement park through the words of Betty Ann, who manages to spook Kristen out even before the story ends. Betty Ann explains that the amusement park was home to a spook house called Laughing in the Dark, where visitors had to pick the right exit door or risk being subjected to endless horrors. Betty Ann then talks about a teenage trio led by Josh, who visits the amusement park with his friend Ouija and his sister Kathy. While Kathy is terrified of the spook house's clowns, Josh declares that he might just try to ride out on his own before deciding against it after encountering the circus carny. The next day, Ouija and Kathy look into the amusement park's history and learn all about a circus clown named Zebo who had run away and sought asylum in the spook house after robbing the circus's payroll. Unfortunately, his cigar started a fire that burned the entire place down, and the amusement park then reconstructed it with a Zebo dummy to add additional scary effects. While Ouija and Kathy share these findings with Josh, he decides to explore the spook house on his own and even defeats a dummy Zebo, while the real ghost of the clown observes the scene. As the episode progresses, Josh even gets his hands on the clown's nose, and it isn't long before Zebo terrorizes him and demands the nose back. When Josh finally senses the ghost's presence in his home, he returns to the spook house with tons of cigars and the nose as a peace offering in the hopes that the clown will leave him alone. However, the episode ends with a glimpse of the circus carny, who's revealed to be Zebo's ghost, while a relieved and somewhat scared Josh returns home. The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner. Written and directed by Ron Oliver, The Tale of the Ghastly Grinner was a part of the fourth season, and it kicked off with Betty Ann's thoughts on comic books as she introduced the tale of the Ghastly Grinner. The story begins with a talented artist named Ethan Woods, who finds an invitation to a comic book store opening amid several other rejection mails for his comic ideas. With no other opportunities ahead of him, he decides to check out the comic book shop and even meets the store owner, Frankie Uncas. Soon enough, they hit it off, and Frankie even offers him several comics at low prices before finally revealing that his comic works bear a resemblance to the iconic artist Sylvester Uncas. While Ethan doesn't seem to have heard of him, Frankie introduces him to Uncas's most notable work, The Ghastly Grinner. This comic revolves around a court jester-like villain who is so powerful that his laughter could turn his opponents into laughing idiots, and Frankie even gifts Ethan the comic. Ethan gets engrossed in the comic while at school, and his professor ends up confiscating it and even dropping it into a fish tank, but alas, this turns out to be for the worse. Soon enough, this fictional entity stirs up trouble in Ethan's life, and he realizes that his life is mirroring the terrible incidents that take place in the book. He even reaches out to Frankie, who advises him to draw another comic that marks the Grinner's end to destroy him forever. Soon enough, the Grinner traps Ethan in the comics, and they have a striking face-off before Ethan traps him for good with some help from his classmate, Hooper Piccolaro. Of course, this involves a whole lot of trouble, as the Grinner does everything in his power to trap Ethan in a nightmarish world, and the episode was all the more terrifying since the Grinner could come to life through pretty much any medium, from comics to cardboard cutouts. The Tale of the Dream Girl. Released as a part of the show's third season, The Tale of the Dream Girl was written by David Preston and directed by David Winning. It was narrated by Sam, who starts by warning that the story is about true love, an instant that can strike any person when they least expect it. She introduces the story's main characters, a sibling duo named Johnny and Erica Angeli, who were quite close and even worked at the same bowling alley. While ending his shift one day, Johnny discovers a silver ring with a sapphire in his locker and wears it, even though Erica tells him she didn't put it there. Johnny tries everything to get the ring off, but it remains stuck to his finger, and he eventually gives up on it and goes about his evening. As he stays up late, he ends up getting plagued by the voice of a teenage girl who calls out to him and eventually reveals herself in a rather disturbing dream. Convinced that the dream had to do with the ring, he tries everything to take it off again and even confides in his sister at work. The mystery girl eventually introduces herself as Donna Maitland, and he gets acquainted with her, even though it intensifies his nightmarish visions. He starts hearing a girl screaming out loud against the sound of train tracks, while Donna asks him out to dinner at a snack bar. While the bar has a vintage vibe, Johnny notices that the waitress serves him his favorite food, and he tries his best to leave when Donna reveals that he had been wearing her ring. When they finally leave, Johnny returns home and finds Erica, who has old newspaper clippings regarding Donna's death in a train crash. Johnny instantly freaks out and remembers that Donna wanted to take him along with her, and he even starts getting strange calls from her. He finally gathers the courage to visit her grave at the cemetery, and Erica tags along, only to realize realized that Johnny was Donna's boyfriend and that he had died in the same crash. While his ghost had returned home as if nothing had happened, Donna's ghost had been trying to get him to return to the cemetery, and Johnny's ghost is finally laid to rest next to his dream girl. The ending especially sends a shiver down our spines as we realize that Erica had no idea she had lost her brother, while Donna's ghost suffered without her beloved by her side. The Tale of the Bookish Babysitter. Directed by Ian Patterson, The Tale of the Bookish Babysitter was released as part of the anthology series' third season and was once again narrated by Betty Ann. She starts by introducing a strange young woman named Belinda who had slowly become a popular babysitter in the area. She also magically appeared whenever parents needed someone to look after their kids, and the story begins with Belinda being hired to look after a 12-year-old named Ricky Winters. While Mrs. Winters seems skeptical about Belinda's witchy appearance, the sitter soon makes herself comfortable and even reads out a scary tale, even though Ricky wants to do nothing but watch TV. As she narrates the story, the weather outside worsens and the light starts to flicker, while Ricky declares that he's bored and wants to read a different book titled The King's Sword. However, he abandons it midway, while Belinda warns him that this might come at a great cost. Even though the kid runs away, his troubles seem to be far from over, as the knight from the tale shows up in his home and tries to attack Ricky, while Belinda rushes to burn her books in the fireplace. Moreover, another knock on the door reveals that the real Belinda had just arrived, while the witch reveals that her books were a figment of her imagination and that she had manifested her benevolent and malevolent sides into existence at once. She further insists that the only way for Ricky to break free from this nightmarish adventure is by using his imagination to complete both the stories he had read. While this helps him restore things to their usual order just in time for Mrs. Winters to return home, Ricky asks Belinda if any of it was real, while his mother seems overjoyed at the fact that he's enjoying reading. As she takes her leave, the babysitter smiles and hints that the adventures were real, while Ricky is left behind in complete awe over his new hobby and how it opened magical doors for him from the comfort of his home. The Tale of the Lonely Ghost. Released as the third episode of the series, The Tale of the Lonely Ghost was written by Naomi Jansen and directed by DJ MacHale. The story was narrated by David, who states that his story is about two kids who don't get along. He jumps right into the plot and introduces a teenager named Amanda, who spends her summer with Aunt Dottie and her snobby cousin Beth. While the two kids struggle to get along, Beth comes up with a set of rules for Amanda to follow if she wants to tag along with her friends, and even declares that she must spend a night at the abandoned house next door to prove her worth. She reveals that the house was supposedly haunted by the ghost of a little girl who died of starvation, and poor Amanda does her best to remain calm and brave. While Beth and her friends promise to linger around, they soon run away, while Amanda is left all alone to deal with the haunted house. She actually witnesses the little girl's ghost and rushes back to her aunt's house, only for Aunt Dottie to send her back to clean up the mess in the abandoned house. Beth is also asked to accompany her, even though she doesn't believe in the ghost, only to be hypnotized by the ghost's dolls, while Amanda realizes that the ghost has been trying to give her a locket. As she inspects this piece of jewelry, Amanda realizes that the ghost's mother was none other than Beth's nanny, and she then rushes to find her and bring her back to the abandoned house. While Beth is still hypnotized, the nanny even walks through a magical mirror to reunite with her daughter and live happily ever after, while Beth is still stuck inside the wardrobe mirror. Finally, her friends agree to rescue her on the condition that she can't be mean to them anymore, and the young girl promises to make some changes, while Amanda lets her out. The Tale of the Chameleons. Written by Mark D. Perry and directed by Ian Patterson, The Tale of the Chameleons was released during the series' fifth season. As the title suggests, this episode revolved around an exotic chameleon, and Betty Ann narrates this tale that begins in a pet store. While a mean-spirited, red-haired kid bothers the pets by tapping on the glass and throwing his gum in the fish tanks, two teenage girls named Janice and Sharon reprimand him while strolling around the place. Soon enough, Janice notices a chameleon and even puts her hand inside the tank when the reptile bites her and escapes the store, only to make its way into Janice's mother's grocery bag. Completely oblivious to the situation, the chameleon ends up in her household while Janice and Sharon prepare for a sleepover and settle in for the night. Unfortunately, the chameleon seems to have developed an obsession with Janice, and it bites her once more before finally turning into her clone. While Janice comes face to face with this evil pet that has somehow cloned itself into an exact replica of her, she confides in Sharon when she realizes she had started morphing into the chameleon. In a strange turn of events, the cloned chameleon declares that it wants to enjoy Janice's life and even orders a bunch of chameleons from the pet store. While Sharon can't help but notice something is wrong, the evil chameleon does a wonderful job of fooling Janice's parents, while the young girl is helplessly stuck in a reptilian form. In fact, The chameleon even plots to get Sharon out of the way by unleashing one of the ordered chameleons upon her. Soon enough, the evil reptile reveals that there are hundreds of chameleons that have been swapping lives with humans, and Sharon then comes up with a plan to spray the evil clone with water to turn it back into a chameleon before throwing it into a well to kill it. One by one, she gets rid of all the chameleons, only to realize that the reptile was one step ahead of her and that it had tricked Sharon into dumping Janice into the well in her reptilian form. This tale turned out to be one of the most bone-chilling episodes of the series, especially for anyone who has a fear of reptiles, and to make matters worse, Betty Ann wrapped up the story by unleashing a small pet snake. The Tale of the Watcher's Woods. Released during Season 3, The Tale of the Watcher's Woods was written by Gregory Kennedy and directed by David Winning. While the Midnight Society got together during a thunderstorm, Sam narrates a story about twisted evil spirits in the woods as her proposal to officially join the team. The story takes place at Camp Grindlestone, where an ambitious girl named Sarah bumps into Kelly, a fellow camper, who actually hated the entire experience. While Sarah hopes to overcome a lot of challenges and learn new skills during the camp, Kelly's friends soon make fun of her and even hide her trailmaker's vest. Meanwhile, Sarah comes across a shrine that was created in memory of 3 girls who went missing in the Watcher's Woods, and Kelly tells her all about the disappearances and the horrible accidents that take place in the deepest corners of the woods. While Sarah doesn't believe them, another camper tells her that the woods are being controlled by a demonic entity named the Watcher, and the camp counselor soon pairs Kelly and Sarah on a mission to explore the woods and collect specimens in order to win their nature medals. As they explore the woods, Kelly tricks Sarah into finding a rare pheasant's nest while she sneaks off and realizes she has also lost the way. Unfortunately, both girls end up getting lost, and Kelly nervously tries to keep calm while Sarah unfortunately has a run-in with the demonic Watcher. Kelly even runs into an impaled head on a stick and has a couple of adventures on her own as she discovers 3 witches who turn out to be the 3 girls who had gone missing in the woods about 75 years ago. While they blame Kelly for stealing their whistles, Sarah thankfully runs into her, and the 2 girls put their differences aside to cooperate with the witches and help them find their whistles. This helps them return to their own time or cross over into the afterlife, while Sarah and Kelly return to their own campsite. They seem to have bonded over the traumatic experience, and after all, one doesn't face such terrors and survive to tell the tale without having formed some lifelong friendships.
Welcome to my parlor.
The Tale of the Fire Ghost. Written by Scott Peters and directed by Jean-Marie Comeau, The Tale of the Fire Ghost was narrated by Tucker and was a part of the show's 4th season. The story begins inside Fire Station 214, where firefighter Dan Preston seems to be having a relaxing night when his ex-wife Linda and kids Roxy and Jimmy throw a surprise party for him. While Dan is pleasantly surprised, Linda soon has to rush, and Dan then looks over his kids and realizes that Jimmy is particularly upset with him. To make things worse, the station's lights start flickering and another firefighter talks about the fire ghost that lingers around the station when Jimmy cuts himself on some glass. He also refuses to let his father help him with first aid and blames him for not spending enough time with them, while Dan promises to make amends. As the father-son duo reconcile in the rec room and check out a video game, Jimmy's hopes are crushed when Dan has to leave for a firefighting emergency while Jimmy and Roxy wait around the station. They hang out with firefighter Jake Griffin, who tells them about the fire ghost's ability to pull people into a world of eternal flames. While the kids are terrified, Jake further warns them that the ghost appears every time someone looks directly into a fire, but his warning falls on deaf ears as Jimmy accidentally looks right into a fire and summons the ghost. While he sticks with his sister Roxy, the 2 of them realize they're in great trouble, while Jake also warns them to leave the station as quickly as possible. He then reveals himself to be a ghost as well, and Jimmy and Roxy rush out a broken window and run into a police officer who they ask for help. Soon enough, they return to the fire station with the officer, only to find that the place has been restored with no signs of the ghost, but soon enough, the officer himself transforms into the fire ghost. While the 2 kids scramble around the place, Jimmy realizes that the fire ghost was a firefighter who had worked with their father. Unfortunately, he had died during a fire while saving an old woman from a burning building, and he had been holding on to a grudge against their father over his death. Now that they had this figured out, Roxy and Jimmy made use of fire extinguishers and emergency sprinklers to destroy the ghost once and for all, while we learn that the fire ghost was none other than Officer Jake Griffin. Thankfully, he was never spotted around the station after Roxy and Jimmy dealt with him, and the sibling duo celebrates their victory just as their father returns from his mission as well. The Tale of the Frozen Ghost. While the last entry was all about the fire ghost, this particular episode, titled The Tale of the Frozen Ghost, introduced us to a contrasting monster. Written by Naomi Jansen and directed by Ron Oliver, this tale was narrated by Kristen, who reveals that the story takes place on the coldest night in the country. As she jumps right in, she introduces us to a young boy named Charles who seems to be traveling to his aunt's house with his babysitter Daphne. Charles appears to be a spoiled young brat, but even he looks anxious about visiting these aunts while his parents are going away for a wedding. He protests that they might not wish to be disturbed so late in the night, while Daphne assures him that they won't mind taking care of him since they are his family, after all. As they head to the door, we're introduced to Aunt Greta and Aunt Maylene, who are delighted to host them, even though Charles has a bad feeling about the place being haunted by ghosts. To make matters worse, he hears creepy wailing sounds coming from outside and the electricity is soon cut off, while we learn that the aunts were struggling to pay their bills. While Daphne suggests they should ask for help from Charles's parents, Aunt Greta reveals that they couldn't ask for money due to a family feud, while Aunt Maylene tells them all about their farmhand who had attempted a bank robbery and died while being taken to prison. At this point, Charles is convinced that the farmhand's ghost has been lingering around the house, while Aunt Maylene reveals that there is a ghost who lingers around. However, they don't know the ghost's identity and they decide to keep this a secret from Charles, who already seems quite spooked. To make matters worse, the ghost reveals himself as a frail little boy and sneaks up on Charles while he's chopping firewood with Daphne. The ghost complains that he's cold and Charles digs through a log to find an old red jacket with an antique key. When he hands the jacket to the ghost, the boy turns healthier by the second, and Daphne and Charles are relieved to learn that they were being haunted just because the ghost was cold. Now that they had sent it away, Charles uses the key to unlock a door that led them to a plethora of gold coins, while Aunt Greta and Aunt Maylene celebrate the end of their money troubles.
Aaron! Now what? I'm a various look already!
The Tale of the Quicksilver. To wrap this list up, we have The Tale of the Quicksilver, which was written by Wendy Brotherland and directed by Michael Kuesch for the third season of the series. The episode begins with an enthusiastic Kiki as she talks about the power of magic and delves into her story, where a young girl seems to be performing a magic ritual. As the scene shifts to her mansion, the girl has several candles lit in a circle while she burns incense and herbs and uses a spoon as her magic wand. She seems to be summoning an evil demon, but the ritual goes downhill as she struggles to control him and meets her end. While the demon burns the house down, the scene shifts to a new family moving into the house 2 years later without any prior knowledge of the demon, and siblings Aaron and Doug investigate the house and sense something wrong in the previously burned-down bedroom. To make things worse, a girl named Connie befriends Aaron at school, and you can't help but notice her resemblance to the teenage girl who had burned up during the magic ritual. While Aaron starts noticing the strange things around him and even confides in his brother Doug, he's plagued with nightmarish visions of a woman strikingly similar to Connie as she performs magic rituals. He even discovers the demon and a drawing with the name Laura Turner, and finally confronts Connie, who reveals that Laura was her twin sister who had lost her mind after being haunted by a ghost. Connie further admits that Laura is now dead, while Doug falls sick and stays home when he discovers a tale about the ghost of Quicksilver. This ghost seems to be leaving the letter Q around haunted places, and Doug then gets increasingly sick in the same way as Laura, while Aaron and Connie work together to contain the demon. In the end, Aaron chants the incantations with a silver amulet to trap the demon and ensure that he doesn't return anytime soon, while Doug's health is restored. Moreover, Connie faces Laura's spirit and even apologizes for not believing her stories, while promising that they'll be reunited one day. Kiki wraps up the story with a lesson about using magic for good and warns the rest of the Midnight Society against such rituals before they sense an incoming rainstorm and run away. Marvelous verdict! And with that, we've explored some of the creepiest episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Ranging from tales of vampires lurking around hospitals in the night to spooky amusement parks and lonely ghosts. The show's anthology concept of introducing these engaging horror-filled tales through a secret society of teenagers was quite the hit among young audiences, and it most definitely delivered at creating a tense atmosphere through the screen. We hope you enjoyed exploring these stories with us, and we would love to know your favorite picks in the comments down below. Also, as always, if you enjoyed our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and remember, be very afraid of the dark.